Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
For the past 6 years, the superheroes industry was a bit disappointing for me.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
Right now, MCU is not very stable. Sometimes it provides us with the most beautiful things human has ever seen, and sometimes this pile of shit. After the magnificent finale of the Infinity Saga and a controversial and ambiguous series of movies, Feige thought that it's time to restart the universe. And DC. While the James Gunn universe has become pretty recently and hasn't quite caught the Marvel side of success, the last two projects that this guy gave us were pretty decent. So, what did the media offer us to close this awful gap? I'm glad you asked, cause it's
pretty interesting.
With the release of the new season, I decided to give you an opportunity to remember the history of the Invincible. How did it end up to this? Alright, let's cut this bullshit and talk about the creator of Invincible. So, I present to you Robert Kirkman.
Robert Kirkman.
I don't know. He's
Robert Kirkman.
As the creative force behind The Walking Dead and The Invincible, Kirkman has become one of the most influential comic creators of the 21st century. His work redefined how horror, superhero, and dystopian stories could be told, not through spectacle alone, but through deeply human, often uncomfortable character-driven drama. Robert Kirkman was born 1978 in Lexington, Kentucky. From an early age, he immersed himself in comic books and horror media, devouring superhero stories from Marvel and DC. In 2000, at just 19 years old, Kirkman self-published a Battle Pope, co-created with an artist, Tony Moore. The comic was an outrageous satire that blended religion, superheroes, and dark comedy, instantly signaling Kirkman's willingness to subvert expectations. Though the series failed commercially and left him tens of thousands of dollars in debt, it succeeded in a more important way. It got him noticed. Battle Pope became the stepping stone that eventually connected him with Image Comics, a company built around creator ownership and philosophy Kirkman would later champion. The comic series Invincible was created in the early 2000s by writer Robert Kirkman and artist Cory Walker, at a point when both creators were still job security. Cory Walker lived with Kirkman at the time, and both worked out of a shaped studio space. Under these conditions, the creative process became more flexible and open to experimentation, as there was little reason to prioritize conservative choices. When Ryan Otley joined the series and the production schedule stabilized, things slowly began to improve, and thank goodness that he joined, because the art style was even worse than when Araki started to draw JoJo. But even then, the threat of cancellation never fully disappeared. These were contingency plans in place to continue the story through alternate books, including the possibility of shifting focus to Adam Eve if Invincible itself failed, a testament to how uncertain the future remained even as the series gained traction. But what about the violence of Invincible? Well, there are many things with that. But if it's kinda where Kirkman stands out of the bunch. In 2021, Invincible was debuted into an animated series by Amazon Prime Video, with Kirkman serving as a co-showrunner and executive producer. The adaptation was praised for preserving the comic's maturity and emotional intensity, proving once again that Kirkman's stories thrive when given room to breathe. And oh boy, it really helped it a lot. Cause, do you even realize how many of these fucking Are You Sure memes were on my FYP? The Omni-Man in MK, the endless videos in social medias, cosplays, memes, merch, heck, it even got its own game.
I have it canned.
So the story starts with an attack on the White House by the villainous duo called the Moeller twins, basically Bruce Benning. and then enter the Guardians of the Globe, basically Justice League or Avengers, and here they are. The immortal, basically Superman, he has a super strength, endurance, and the ability to fly. Wonder Woman, combination of Wonder Woman and Hawk Girl, has super strength and speed. Darkwing is a pretty much Batman and he flies around on his levitating surfboard. Red Rush is a rush from Flash. Green Ghost can walk through the walls, and the most suitable analogy will be the ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Martian Man is pretty much just a fusion of Mr. Fantastic and Martian Manhunter. Heck, their name is pretty much identical and he has the ability to shape-shift. And Aquarius is like Aquaman if he looked like an actual fish. But hold up, where is
Omni-Man? Where is he? Where is Omni-Man?
The attack on the White House is also where we first meet Nolan Grayson, aka Omni-Man. Now, Omni-Man is not a part of a Guardians of the Globe team. However, they do work together from time to time. He comes from the planet Viltrum, and Viltrumites are very similar to humans in appearance, but they have super strength, durability, and they can fly. So basically another Superman. Apparently, Omni-Man has a beautiful family, a pet, a wife, Debbie, and his son Mark. Now, when we first meet Mark, he has yet to access his superpowers. It's always been assumed that he would one day inherit his father's abilities. Nolan is very frustrated that his son has reached age 17 and has still yet to exhibit any Viltrumite powers. After Mark finally does get his power, he tells his parents that,
"Guess who's finally getting his powers?"
Are you sure?
Pretty sure. Threw a trash bag into
it's
space.
like watching Mona Lisa being painted. Then he begins training with his dad. After some trial and error, Mark starts to get hold of his new abilities and has his first super fight with a guy called Titan, who can turn himself into a stone. When Nolan sees Mark in his homemade costume, he takes Mark to get a proper superhero suit. Now, as Mark is getting the hang of the superhero life, we see him struggle to balance school friends and even his relationship with his mother. Later, we see Mark have his first big battle with a villain called Kill Cannon. Mark wins relatively easily considering he has the same powers as his dad, and this fight is where Mark debuts his hero name. We then cut to the various members of the Guardians of the Globe being alerted to meet at their base. As each member arrives, they soon realize it was an ambush by Omni-Man. And I was like,
No, stop! What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
and my mind was blown. Could you even imagine that it's the first episode of the series and the world's mightiest heroes were murdered by one Superman knockoff? Heck, Immortal is basically the same as Omni-Man. How did he end up having his head chopped off? Well, I guess this is what people like about Robert Kirkman. Right at the start, the second episode begins with this gruesome scene. Omni-Man is found unconscious by the Global Defense Agency. They assume that Man was also attacked by whoever killed the Guardians and that he's the only one who survived. Now, as Omni-Man lies in coma, an alien race called the Flaxen attack the city. This is where we meet the Teen Team, another superhero group consisting of Adam Eve, and she has the ability to manipulate molecules. And that I gotta admit, this one is an original character because I can't remember anyone to have the same powers as her. There's also Duplicate, she can, well, duplicate herself. Brexplode can blow stuff up and he's pretty generic, and of course, there's a robot. Invincible joins the Teen Team in their fight against the Flaxen. Now eventually the Flaxen retreat because they begin to die of an old age. Times move differently where the Flaxen are from, which causes them to age quickly while they're on the Earth. The next day, Mark recognizes Adam Eve at school at his classmate Eve Wilkins. Eve was part of a superhuman experiment before she was ever born. Her mother died in childbirth and then she was adopted. She then discovers at a young age that she has the ability to see individual molecules that cannot be seen with the naked eye. Eve then ends up getting sent to school for the gifted, and when she is a little older she discovers that not only can she see particles but she can control them. Eve begins to use her powers to fight crime and soon learns about her true origins from Dr. Brandyworth. Soon after, Eve is forced to fight her siblings who were also subjects of experiments, but these experiments were unsuccessful. Eve learned that her mother actually survived childbirth, and that she's kept alive all these years and used to create more superhumans. So after the death of her mother and Brandyworth, Eve joins the Teen Team. So back in the present day, we see Mark and Eve go together to the Teen Team's headquarters so they can be properly introduced. Meanwhile, the GDA is investigating the slaughtering of the Guardians of the Globe, and here is where we meet Demon Detective Darkblood. A few days later, which was decades for the Flaxen, they return to Earth to conclude their invasion. The Teen Team and Invincible assemble again to defeat the Flaxen. So Omni-Man recovers from his injuries and continues training Mark to be a hero. Mark then gets a call informing him that the Flaxen have returned again, only this time Omni-Man gets involved. Now, Omni-Man sends the Flaxen packing, but then he takes things a step further. He travels to the Flaxen planet and ragefully obliterates it, following the destruction of the Flaxen homeworld. Then we get a funeral for the Guardians of the Globe. Omni-Man speaks at the funeral and assures the world that he will serve as its protector in the absence of the Guardians. Later, Darkblood questions Omni-Man about the attack on the Guardians, and with the Guardians all being gone, Cecil is now in reach of a new team. He recruits Robot from Teen Team to form a new Guardians of the Globe lineup. Robot hosts tryouts for the new team and recruits Adam, Eve, Rexplode, and Duplicate, and new members. Shortly after Eve quits due to turmoil with Rex after he cheats on her with Kate, Mark finally calls his crush Amber and invites her to hang out with him, but Mark ends up skipping out on the date when he gets caught in to stop Doc Seismic from destroying Mount Rushmore. Mark and Eve beat Seismic and Mark returns to find Amber still waiting for him, and then Eve walks in on them smacking lips. Meanwhile, in supervillain news, the Molar twins escape prison with the help of Robot, and Darkblood continues his work to investigate the murder of the Guardians of the Globe. Omni-Man and Invincible continue their training, and Mark learns more about his father's alien heritage. So as the walls begin to close in Omni-Man's brutal massacre of the Guardians, we see Omni-Man threaten Darkblood and tell him to keep away from Mark and Debbie, until Red Rush's wife Olga says to Debbie about the death of her husband and airs her suspicions. As Nolan and Debbie's relationship become tense, he offers to take her on a couple's vacation to Rome while Mark is escorting NASA on a mission to Mars. While on Mars, we see the astronauts get taken hostage and they are sentenced to death by the Martian Emperor. He fears that if they are left alive and allowed to travel back to Earth, they could unknowingly be infected by an alien called the Sequid. Invincible is able to rescue the astronauts and return them to Earth, but little does he know that one of the astronauts has been replaced by one of these shape-shifting Martians. Now, back on Earth, Cecil is fully aware that it was Omni-Man who murdered the Guardians. He ordered Darkblood to stop his investigation to figure out why Omni-Man did what he did. Later, we catch back with a Titan, and he's working for a guy with a cool voice called Machine Head because he owes him a lot of money.
Shut the hell up!
Mark continues to balance his personal life, his relationship with Amber, and of course trying to be a superhero, while Eve has taken a short break from it. Titan reaches out to Invincible for help defeating Machine Head, so they team up and attack Machine Head's headquarters. The new Guardians of the Globe team come in to help, and during this fight though, Invincible gets his clock cleaned by Battle Beast. In fact, Battle Beast beats down the entire Guardians of the Globe. And later we see Debbie find a journal that Darkblood left in her closet. Now Debbie decides to take Omni-Man's costume in for examination by Art Rosenbaum. He's the guy who makes the super suits for all the superheroes. Examination confirms the words that Omni-Man was indeed responsible for the Guardian's murder. So Debbie confronts Nolan about this discovery, and a fight with a big cyborg Mark gets recognized as invincible by his best friend William. And Amber ends up breaking up with Mark because he's always disappearing. After Debbie's confrontation with Nolan about his involvement in the killing of the Guardians, she's called to the GGA by Cecil. Here she learns that Cecil has known all along that it was Omni-Man who killed them. Molar successfully creates another clone of himself with the help of Robot, and then he uses the cloning technology to create a human body for his own consciousness to inhabit, and this is the clone of Rex's body. See, Robot all along had been controlled by this guy. Now the reason Robot did this, why he made himself a good-looking human body, is because he's actually in love with Monster Girl and wants the two of them to be together. Later, Mark finally reveals to Amber that he's invincible, to which Amber says,
Are you sure?
Pretty sure.
When Omni-Man arrives back home, he finds the GDA spying on him and he kills them all. Rudy, along with the Molar twins, then revive Immortal. So Immortal immediately goes to find Omni-Man and kill him, but Omni-Man kills Immortal again, and this time it's broadcasted on live TV. With everything now out in the open, Omni-Man finally asks to have a talk with Mark and tell him the truth.
Mark, this is good news. We can finally we can be. You'll live for 30 years.
This is insane!
Omni-Man explains to Mark that he wasn't sent to Earth to be its protector, he was sent there to be its conqueror. Omni-Man attempts to convince Mark to join him, but Mark refuses.
What you did was not nice!
Omni-Man even refers to his wife, Mark's mother, as his pet, showing his true contempt for humanity. Omni-Man and Invincible then get into this huge fight. Omni-Man beats Invincible relatively easily and almost kills him, as he lays blow after blow into his son's face.
What will you have after 500 years?
I don't know. Sure you do. Answer!
Invincible as just a few punches away from death, Omni-Man begins to remember his son as a young boy. Now filled with guilt, Omni-Man spares Mark's life and flies away, leaving Earth, and the world now knows the truth about Omni-Man. So Cecil, Debbie and Mark work together to fake Omni-Man's death, and Mark and Amber get back together. Mark then catches up with Alan the alien. Now Alan is a Unopian and he was born in a Unopian breeding camp following the near extinction of his people by the Viltrumite Empire. Alan convinces Invincible to join the Coalition of Planets, an organization that protects from Viltrumite conquerors like Omni-Man. We then see the Molar twins get arrested again while Immortal is shown to have survived his second death at the hands of Omni-Man. Man, what a tough nut he is. Had his stomach poked, survived. Got his head chopped off, survived. Got his head chopped off second time survived. And that's where season 1 left off. Mark continues to serve Earth as Invincible, ironically filling the shoes of his father, though this is Cecil and he's in charge of the Global Defense Agency. He has appointed the Immortal as the new leader of the Guardians of the Globe, along with the new hero joining the team. Meanwhile, the Molar twins are broken out of prison with the help of a multiversal traveler named Angstrom Levy. Angstrom wants the Molars to help him combine the minds of all his variant cells from throughout the multiverse into one single mind. So in exploration of the multiverse, we learn that in the most other universes, Mark joined Nolan and his takeover of Earth. We even see an evil variant of Mark almost kill a variant of Angstrom in another universe.
Let's do this, Mark. I missed lunch because of that riot in Bangkok.
Now back on Mark's Earth, we see him pursuing the Molar twins. He crashes the party right in the middle of the merging of all Angstrom's minds. This intervention causes the machine to explode and the Prime Angstrom is infused with all his alternative self's minds, but with no order to the chaos, he loses control. This results in him heading Invincible, because in all other realities Invincible was pure evil. On top of all, the superheroine Mark is also graduating from high school and getting ready to go off to college. Debbie is struggling with PTSD from the betrayal of her husband. When meeting with Cecil, she discovered that Donald is alive. Now Donald, a GDA agent, was killed in the explosion across the street from the Grayson's home. But we soon learned that Cecil preserved pieces of Donald's brain and put them into an android body. Donald has died many times and is now much more machine than man. Elsewhere, we catch up with Adam Eve, who is embarking on philanthropic ventures, hoping to impress her parents, but that goes belly up when her construction project collapses due to a lack of planning. And then we catch up with Alan the alien, who Mark met a couple of times previously. Alan works with the Coalition of Planets, a group of interstellar bodies who stand up in the way of Viltrumite takeover. Alan comes from the planet Yopa, which was attacked by the Viltrumites a few few decades back. This leads to this planet joining the coalition of planets in their fight against Viltrumite rule. Alan is successfully bred into the strongest Unopan ever, all in an attempt to create a fighting force that is capable of taking on Viltrumites. Upon learning that Nolan has abandoned Earth in his mission to conquer the planet, Alan reports back to Thaddeus and the council, informing them that young Mark Grayson stood up to his father. We then see Alan attacked in the middle of a space by 3 Viltrumites who rip him to shreds. He is put on life support, but Thaddeus takes him off life support, risking Alan's life, but hoping it will cause Alan to bounce back, which he does. It is revealed that Thaddeus is a Viltrumite, but a rebel Viltrumite who is committed to destroying their empire, and he asked Alan to recruit Mark for the coming war. Back on Earth, Mark is attending colleges. Now Mark is approached by an alien asking him for help back on his planet. Mark agrees and travels through the space to the planet of Thraxa. We then learn that this was all set up by Nolan. When he left Earth, he flew into deep space and almost threw himself into a black hole. He then saw the Thraxan ship about to get sucked into the same black hole and saves them, and then they deem him to be their ruler. There he marries and has a son. Thraxa's lifespan are actually not only a year, which means that they age very fast, but with Oliver also being half Viltrumite, his aging is slightly slowed compared to that of a pure Thraxan. Now Nolan understands that Mark is upset with him, but he wants to rekindle things with his son and ask for help protecting his new family. So the same Viltrumites that attacked Alan then arrive on Thraxa. Mark takes Nolan's wife Andress and baby Oliver to a cave to hide as Nolan faces off against the Viltrumites. They win the fight, but just barely. We then see Nolan captured by more Viltrumites, and we meet General Craig. Craig tells Mark to return to Earth and finish his father's mission. Mark strays on Thraxa and helps them rebuild, but then he returns to Earth with his new brother. Now, the Martian who took the place of the Russ Livingston is inspired by the Martian Man and takes on the moniker of Shapesmith. Meanwhile, the other Guardians are attacked by the Lizard League and they are brutally defeated. Despite Rex and the others surviving, Kate is believed to be dead. That is until it's revealed that the original Kate is still alive and has kept herself separate. Mark introduces his mother to his brother. Debbie agrees to help Mark by raising Oliver, and she reluctantly accepts help in the form of a nanny from Cecil. Now Mark and Amber have been trying to make things work, but his life is invincible, becomes more time-consuming, putting stress on their relationship. Rudy, aka Robot, is placed back in the charge of the team, so Rudy, with the help of the Molar twins, has also created a clone body of Rex that he has transferred to his consciousness into body of a child, just like his crush, Monster Girl. But despite them both being older minds and younger bodies, Rudy will grow older while Monster Girl will grow younger and younger. Now Rudy has feelings for Monster Girl and wants to fix her de-aging problem, but Monster Girl gets uncomfortable even talking about it. Mark is reminded by Anissa, another Viltrumite, that the clock is ticking for his takeover of Earth. But on top of the impending Viltrumite invasion, we still have Angstrom Levy, who is out for Mark's blood. Angstrom takes Debbie and young Oliver hostage. A one wrong move and they fall. Angstrom's toys, with Mark sending him hurling throughout various realities. Mark gets the upper hand and is able to take down Levy, but he succumbs to his own anger and beats Angstrom to death, strangling himself in another reality. Now Mark is saved by the time-traveling Guardians of the Globe from an alternate future of his own reality, and in their reality Mark never made it back home. Without Invincible, their planet pretty much went to. But after 20 years, the GDA had access to both a time machine and interdimensional portal machine. At first, the Guardians tried to save the original Mark, who've been stranded here for 2 decades, but Robot implied that version went insane, therefore they went back in time to save Mark before he goes crazy, which is why they appear so soon after he killed Angstrom. The Guardians then open a portal for him to go back home with the hope that he'll fix all of the things that went wrong in their timeline. Before he goes through, the older version of Eve confesses that she is in love with him, and she makes it clear that when they were teenagers she wanted Mark to tell her how he felt regardless of whether he's in love with her or not. Meanwhile, in space, Alan fakes his defeat and he's captured and brought on aboard a Viltrumite prison ship. There he encounters Nolan and then two plan their escape. Season 3 begins roughly 90 days after Anissa came to Earth. By this point, Cecil has become Mark's personal trainer in preparation for a full-scale Viltrumite invasion. Invincible pushes his body beyond its limits, increasing all of his physical stats and testing his upgraded strength against Multipole. Multipole is a twin brother of Duplicate. Mark intervenes to save his friend, destroying over 50 of Multipole's copies. Before he can reach the real one, Duplicates arrive and reveals the truth. The Kate who was crushed in Season 2 was only a duplicate. The real Duplicate had planned to disappear and start a new life, but her feelings for the Immortal ultimately stopped her from leaving. Together they return to the Guardians. Multipole is sent to prison for attacking Rex, while Mark visits Eve's house for the first time in months. After encouragement from William and Rex, Mark finally decides to ask Eve out. Unfortunately, he immediately fumbles by telling her everything the future version of Eve had said to him. Deep beneath the Earth's surface, nearly all of the planet's major heroes have been kidnapped by Doc Seismic. Since Season 1, Doc Seismic has allied himself with invulnerable underground creatures. Just as the heroes are about to be crushed, Cecil intervenes by deploying the Reanimate in Darkwing 2. Darkwing 2 is a former villain whose powers allow him to access the Shadowverse, a dimension he once tried to trap Invincible in forever. He also murdered numerous civilians for minor crimes. After his arrest in Season 2, Mark believed Darkwing was imprisoned. Likewise, the Reanimate were created by D.A. Sinclair, another villain Mark assumed was locked away. Despite this, both threats saved the day when Darkwing captures Doc Seismic and Reanimate rescue the heroes. This pushes Mark over the edge. He confronts Cecil, furious that he would work with killers, arguing that murderers don't deserve second chances. Mark refuses to leave the GDA unless Darkwing and Sinclair are returned to prison. Cecil explained that when he was younger he felt the same way, but he was taught that saving the world often requires making practical, morally great decisions. Feeling threatened by Mark's defiance, Cecil activates his secret weapon, a microscopic device implanted in Mark's head after his fight with Omni-Man. By transmitting a high-frequency signal, the same type that injured Mark in Atlantis, Cecil incapacitates him. Feeling betrayed, Mark flees to Guardians HQ where Rudy and the others help save him. Bruised and furious, Mark vows never to work for Cecil again, while Rex and several Guardians choose to leave as well. Later that night, Mark opens up to Eve about his near-death experience, and this time she agrees to go out with him. When the Maulers take over a nuclear facility and defeat the Guardians, Oliver intervenes and murders both of them without hesitation or remorse. Mark strongly disagrees with Oliver's mindset, maintaining his no-killing rule except in self-defense, like with Angstrom Living. Sadly, even their second attempt is interrupted when Mark is ambushed by two time travelers, Dropkick and Fight Master. In their time, the world is at war with a mad king who ruled the planet for centuries, and this mad tyrant was Abraham Lincoln. Yeah, seriously, in the Invincible universe, Lincoln was a warrior who lived for thousands of years before he became president, and in the modern day, he is the superhero known as the Immortal. At some point between now and the far future, the Immortal transforms from a good guy into a dictator. When Invincible then comes face to face with Immortal from the future, reluctantly Mark fulfills that wish by decapitating Immortal, breaking his no-killing rule. Back in the present, Eve reassures him that he's still a good person, and they finally enjoy a day that spans the entire planet. Elsewhere, Omni-Man faces execution by the Viltrumite Empire. Alan breaks him out, revealing that fewer than 50 pure Viltrumites remain in the universe, a closely guarded secret and the Empire's greatest weakness. Crime Lord Mr. Liu attempts to break Multipole out of patent penitentiary through manipulation involving Titan and Machine Head. Mr. Liu is ultimately killed, Machine Head takes control of the Order, and Titan gains Chicago, leaving Mark feeling used once again. At a memorial honoring victims of Omni-Man's invasion, Powerplex attacks Invincible, seeking revenge for his sister's death. In a tragic twist, Powerplex accidentally kills his own family and is imprisoned, only to escape during the Invincible War. The war begins when Angstrom Levy unleashes evil Invincible variants across the planet. Cities are destroyed, millions die, and heroes fall. Rex sacrifices himself to stop one variant while Eve is placed into a coma. Angstrom returns but is defeated once again. In the aftermath, Immortal retires, Cecil offers Mark leadership of the Guardians and Mark refuses. But within just a couple of hours of saying this, he'd be begging for his help.
Cecil!
To understand why, we should flash back to Season 2
But soon, another will come.
Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
Conquest's ability much stronger than Omni-Man attacks Mark, Oliver, and Eve. By nearly killing Eve, Conquest unintentionally unlocks her full power, allowing her to rebuild her body and severely injure him. Mark finishes the fight by beating Conquest nearly to death. Though Cecil claims Conquest to death, he's dead. The GDA secretly keep him alive. In the aftermath, several major developments are revealed. Robot-built Monster Girl special belt that stops her from getting younger when she transforms, allowing her to age normally, and Mr. Lou is secretly still alive. After the Invincible War, the GTA collected the bodies of the alternate Marks, which D.A. Sinclair is now using them to create the Ultramite Reaniman. Following his battle with Conquest, Mark's outlook changes completely. He decides that the next time he faces a serious threat, he won't hesitate to kill, realizing that countless lives could have been saved if he'd killed Angstrom Levy earlier. And Damien Darkblood returns, plotting to bring a powerful soul from Earth into Hell. Now that the 4th season has finally arrived, all that is left to see how